Hi, what's up everyone? My name is Megan, aka Mainstream Mary Jane, and this is Knowing More for the Conscious Cannabis Consumer. Today, our episode is about why you shouldn't buy weed from your dealer. And our guest for the day is Ashley from NB Can Labs.
Hello.
Ashley, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit more about you, your cannabis. How did you get started in cannabis? And also, what do you do for work now?
So I'm Ashley with NB Can, been in the industry for 4 years. I was referred in a little over 4 years ago from a lawyer that I worked with in healthcare. So I worked in holistic healthcare, chiropractic, did a little pain management, and realized I had a true passion for holistic healthcare. So I was referred in, and ever since then—
Holistic meaning cannabis, right?
That too. So it's been great since, 4 years learning, everybody's growing together, pun intended.
And in these past 4 years, what specifically have you done within the cannabis industry?
Oh my gosh, where to start? So I opened a lab and I was there for 3 years. I am now at a new lab that I'm very proud to be a part of. I am also part of the Chamber of Cannabis. We are the people behind the bill for the Consumption Lounge, DUI reform. We're doing a lot of things in the industry to help shape the future, the people in it, the opportunities. So we've been up to quite a bit.
I know, you are a busy lady. That is definitely for sure. So labs, that might be actually something that people don't even really realize. The fact that not only in Nevada, but throughout the state, but Nevada is one of the most regulated markets in the country. And every cannabis product has to be tested, right? To be sold at a dispensary.
Correct. So in order to sell any product, whether that's edible, flower, or concentrate, you have to have a COA, which is a certificate of analysis from a lab to sell it legally to a dispensary. A lot of people don't know that you can request this analysis at every dispensary. They are supposed to provide it if you request it, but it's basically a breakdown of all of the testing that we do, terpenes, cannabinoids, pesticides, heavy metals, mycotoxins, micro. Within micro, there are so many things that we're testing for between E. coli, aspergillus, yeast, and mold. So there is a lot more that goes into it, I think, that people realize.
Yes, there definitely is. One thing that I've always found is interesting is that, has anyone ever gone to the grocery store and asked for a test result on their lettuce before they bought it?
No, but we should.
We should, right? I think we're gonna do that. If you do that, you probably could come across some test results, but it's going to be for way less
quantity.
Yes, less quantity, and also just less detail of pesticides and microbials than anything else that we're actually consuming and putting in our body, right? So Nevada testing in particular for cannabis is very, very strict. And what is the benefit for the consumer with that? Why do we care? Why do you have a job, girl?
Right? So people pay extra for organic. How do you know that it's organic? What makes it different? You have to have testing. You have to have these things and this data behind it. So to know what you are consuming and what you are putting in your body, it is important because there are patients that are using this for medicine. And if you have a patient with a compromised immune system and they consume cannabis with pesticides, heavy metals, or micro, it could have a tremendous effect on them in a very negative way when this is supposed to be used as a medicine, as a healing property. So it's very important to know what you are consuming.
Right.
What people don't realize is the scale. So people will say, well, 50 years ago, you didn't have to have testing and everybody's fine. Well, 50 years ago, you weren't trying to grow, 10 rooms at a time with hundreds of plants in a room, yielding 1,000 pounds. They were smaller. That's not the situation now. So in order to scale those grows, usually people will apply some things which have to be tested for to make sure you're safe and the product is safe.
Right. So now people used to kind of get from your dealer who grew, let's say 5 to something pounds within their house, right? So now there's large scale growth. So tell me a little bit more about that aspect.
So for every 5 pounds, we have to test and we have to take a random sample. So if you have 500 pounds, we are testing every 5 pounds. A lot of people would like to see it in a higher lot so they can only test 20 pounds. The problem that you have with that is if you do have a fail, you now have that applied to all 20 pounds instead of the 5 pounds.
Gotcha. I mean, that does make sense. Why we would want to keep it smaller batches. And you know, and I know that cultivating cannabis is like any other plant that you're cultivating. Sometimes mistakes happen. I think that every cultivation probably has a fail from time to time, right? Like that's just something that's going to happen. Think about like the vape crisis, for instance, right? That was a big black market situation or traditional market situation where people were purchasing products that didn't have test results. If they had seen the test results, it was going to show failed product, right? With pesticides inside, because what people do is they take dirty flower cannabis products, dirty weed, if you will, and it stays dirty as they extract it, and then you're getting pesticides in your cartridge, and then it's extrapolated to 100% because it's a concentrate, so you're inhaling pesticides, and of course you're going to have damage to your lungs in that situation. Again, I think that, you know, like cartridges shouldn't have a bad name necessarily right now. I'm a cartridge consumer. You know that.
Samesies.
Yeah. You know, they're discreet, they're portable, they're easy, we love them. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't buy a cartridge off from a traditional market because I want to know for sure that I'm not inhaling pesticides and things of this nature. And I think that's something that, you know, consumers really need to understand the benefits of. Yeah, it is a few more dollars to go pay for it. You know, so can I ask you, like, what does it cost a company to test their products? Are we allowed to talk about that at all? Is it cheap?
Define cheap. So I would say average, you know, I can't speak for all labs. I would say the average price point right now.
Brand, I want to test my 5-pound batch of flour with you. How much is that?
I would say it's between $350 to $500 depending on the lab.
Dang. Wow. For just
one little
test?
Correct. So if you have 20 lots.
So, and then we're constantly growing, so it's expensive over time, right?
Correct.
So
that's why some people don't love the labs, is perhaps they don't have exactly respect for the science behind it or feel that it's necessary. Because there have been variations between labs. There is no standardization. So in any other industry where you have testing requirements, there is a standardization between labs, which cannabis does not have right now. And that is something that we are working on as well. Right. Myself, the Chamber of Cannabis, it's very important. So I do understand why some people feel that way.
So this brand over here can go to this lab and it tests like 50%, and then this same brand could take the same stuff to this other lab and it would test like maybe very different.
Unfortunately, yes.
Wow.
Unfortunately, yes. For example, if you test with one lab your flower and then go to another lab for distillate, but you made your formulation based off of the results from lab A, and you are now having lab B tested, it's very hard sometimes to pinpoint where there is an error in the formulation or if there is one, because we are basing it off results that we can't verify.
Wow.
And once there is standardization, that should help. But as of right now, that is the situation.
So why isn't there standardization?
Well, if you ask my honest opinion, it's lack of knowledge. It's lack of education. You know, the state doesn't know where to start. This is new. It's federally illegal. You know, like we still have so many barriers surrounding our situation and the regulations. So we plan on doing the work for them and providing data, and with the chamber doing a lot of things for the state to help them and, you know, expedite this process.
You know, one takeaway from this particular episode is the fact that it is slightly more expensive to buy things from a dispensary than your dealer, but at the end of the day, what you're getting from that is a solidified product, right? You know exactly what's in it, you know. Terpenes, how many terpenes do we have to test for in Nevada? 1, 2, 10, 15?
Yeah, it's changing because we do more than what's required.
You test for a lot of, I think it's like 12 or something. You know, it's a lot of freaking terpenes.
Yes.
And what's interesting is that in other states like California, they don't even test for terpenes yet.
Which is very telling because terpenes are one
essential.
of the most important part of the plant. Yes.
Essential oils.
We actually have a client who had us requested, they're so terpene focused, to change our COA to reflect total terpenes like we would total cannabinoids. And I thought that was exciting because we have growers out there that do care about the clients and they do care about terpenes over potency. So that always makes me excited.
Last question for you. I'm a customer. I go into the dispensary because I watch this podcast and I ask for the COA, the test result of the product. What am I looking for on this piece of paper? Like, what do I care about here?
We have the cannabinoids, terpenes. So these are the two most important things when you ask consumers.
THC percentage, I mean,
Everybody.
what is the variant on that?
So there's a 15% variance.
If it says 78%, it could actually be like 95.
But yes.
So there's a decent variance in that. I mean, there really is. And then terpenes, what else is important on this piece of paper?
So when you go to the back is where we have our micro. So this is important. So the one thing too about pesticides is when you have micro fails, as Megan was saying, you can turn that into concentrate, right? Like you can take failed cannabis and turn it into a distillate and oil. If you fail for pesticide, it has to be destroyed. It has to be destroyed. There's no way around it. You know, it's very hard to get around that or have the state agree to remediation. So pesticides are a very big deal. And if you fail, it's a fail. There's no remediation generally, and you cannot turn it into distillate.
I mean, that makes sense. Pesticides are not good, right? But microbials, okay, so that's interesting. So flour, I've got my flour. By the way, I think this is
Swag.
another example of why you shouldn't buy from your dealer. So I've got my flour, it fails for microbials, then the company can take it and turn it into an extract?
They have choices, so there's options.
Okay.
They can petition the state for a retest.
Does that necessarily mean it's in the final product if it becomes an extract?
Well, it's said to burn through the distillation process, which is why they allow it.
Okay, it is said. All right, Ashley, so you've gone over a ton of information today. Thank you so much. So I guess the bottom line for customers is, you know, yes, it's a little bit more expensive to go to the dispensary than your dealer. That is because of things like test results that are 300 some bucks per product, right? And per 5 pounds, right? But it's worth it, right? It's worth it because you know exactly what you're putting into your body. It's more stringently tested than lettuce at your grocery store, which you're also putting in your body. And at the end of the day, I think that, you know, value yourself and self-care, right? Go to the dispensary, get your tested, safe cannabis products and consume them.
Yes.
Right? All right, everyone, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. This is Knowing More for the Conscious Cannabis Consumer. I am Megan, aka Mainstream Mary Jane, and make sure to tune into and check out Cannavitive, www.cannavitivegroup.com for more info on my brands and products. And Ashley, thank you again, and VCAN Labs and Chamber of Cannabis.
Yes, which you can check out right here. Go to the chamber, see what we are up to, get involved, join, and we will see you there.
Thank you.